Okay guys, we come into the Saturday video for Krieg week. We've given you 3 videos already. Basically we're going through the entire Death Korps of Krieg box set and delivering you tutorials on how to paint each and every part of that. So we've done the Death Rider, we've done the Engineers as a Patreon exclusive video, we've done the huge big artillery piece, we still have the Marshal to do, and that's what should be today's video is all about. But instead I'm going to swivel a little bit and I'm going to move over to this, the beautiful new Arvus Lighter. Now, to give you an idea of how much of a fan of this, I actually own the Resin Forge World one of these already, so it's nice to get a second one, the nice plastic one, to compare them. I thought for a long time as to what I was going to do with this. I know a lot of these vehicles are brought out for Warhammer 30k. I got both of the new guard vehicles as well, and they will not be turned into 30k miniatures. They are going to be used in my 40k armies, as they have data sheets to use them in 40k, and I play 40k a hell of a lot more than I play The Horus Heresy, so for me, it's a no-brainer. So what I'm going to do with this video today is I'm going to turn this into a Krieg Arvus Lighter, obviously ferrying munitions and men from orbit to the battlefield down below over and over again. So I'm sure they have an entire fleet of Arvus Lighters at their disposal for this exact purpose. So it should be fun to get this painted up to match the army. Before I get into it though, I just want to say a huge thank you for all the continued support over on Patreon and of course as YouTube members. Both of you guys are absolutely incredible. We could not continue this channel without the support over on those two platforms. If it's something that interests you, you can check it out using the links below. Patreon is of course the main way to do so. You get access to a private Discord server. You can talk to me on a daily basis about your hobby and take part in all the myriad of events we have hosted over there. And you get an extra video every single week just for you guys. So if that sounds like something that interests you, like I said, linked below. Okay, without further ado, let's dive in and get this Arvus Lighter painted up. Okay, so this is the new Arvus Lighter. I was quite surprised that they even bothered to make the Arvus Lighter into a plastic kit. Like, I love it. I'm a big fan of the Arvus Lighter, but it's not really like a combat vessel. It doesn't really serve much of a purpose in a game. I don't know if they really sold that many of them when they were resin, so it was kind of a bizarre choice, but I am happy they did it. Here's the pilot and the pilot's chair, obviously. These are being left out at the moment, and I may do them as a Patreon exclusive video next week, or I may just paint them on stream or for a bit of fun. I don't have time to do the pilot and the chair in this video, unfortunately, so I'm just going to focus on the whole vehicle as a whole thing. Here it is, all constructed. It went together like a dream. It took about an hour and a half to build it, so not too bad at all. And generally it's beautiful. Like I said at the beginning, I actually own one of the Forge World resin ones, so kind of proof that I'm a fan of these things even before the plastic one came out. And this one is just far superior. The detail is so sharp, everything goes together nicely, and you get some canopies for the windows, which is really nice. So I sprayed a Chaos Black, but that didn't give me the kind of nice coat that I wanted, so I went back with some Corvus Black in my airbrush, and I did a nice little overcoat, tidying up the kind of rough job I did with the undercoat spray. So like I said at the beginning, normally I avoid airbrushes when it comes to making my content, but because it's going to my Krieg army and all my Krieg tanks so far have been painted the same way, to make it blend, I had to go with the airbrush. So unfortunately, that's what we're just going to have to deal with as we go ahead. Okay, with the nice black tones done, it's time for me to add the chevrons. I love adding chevrons to Krieg stuff because Krieg stuff is quite drab and quite dull looking. So to add that like pop of color. And obviously this isn't really a military vessel, it's just a transport. So I think it would actually have chevrons and stuff across the hull and in different places. So I decided to go along and add some chevrons on both wings and the cockpit canopy as well. As you can see, the way I do them is I stripe off the entire thing and I take away every second one so that they're perfectly kind of distanced apart, if that makes sense. And then I use white ink and then I use Indian yellow ink. So the white ink first, giving me a nice color. I don't need like a pure solid white. This like kind of ghostly gray white is all I need as an undertone for the yellow. Using brush control, you do not want to go overspraying with ink. It doesn't really end well. It takes forever to dry. So you want this nice dusty kind of spray when you're doing it. And you get a coat that looks something like that. And then after that, we're going to move over, like I said, to the Indian ink, which is a really nice yellow tone. And I'm going to do 2 or 3 passes. I'm not trying to like blob on a solid coat, just a nice skimmed pass, wait for the dry bit, and then come back across with the other one until you get that desired effect of yellow. The reason I do these chevrons first is because then I just kind of tape off the chevrons entirely to protect them. And then I can go ahead and airbrush the rest of the tank, if you know what I mean. If I did the rest of the tank, then I have to block off the rest of the tank when I was working on the chevrons, and it's kind of a little bit more awkward. I think this is the easier way around to do it, which it may seem a little bit strange. And you may be wondering what the hell kind of chevrons he's doing and why there's only like, it's like blending in and out. I've done specific panels. You'll see them taped off now in a minute, and you'll get a final grand reveal a little bit later in the video as to how they blend better. So you can see where I've taped off. Underneath that is where I'm keeping the chevrons. Everything else is just going to go into the standard Krieg tank color now, which for me is that light blue gray color. Same with the canopy. It's actually just the front window frame that I want to do. The rest is going to go in the blue. So to start off the blue scheme, I'm of course going to go in with a really dark gray scheme. Mechanica Standard Gray is my usual gray of choice, but I was actually out of it at the moment, so I grabbed some Air Army Painter Gray. Did the job for me. I got a solid coat. I had to go a little bit heavier on the wings than I was planning on going, but I had to cover up the overspray of the chevrons that I did, which was okay. And then I can continue doing my slightly lighter coat on the actual hull of this adorable little flyer. It is very detailed. And like many things that Games Workshop do, I don't think they expect you to paint every single little detail, every pipe, every tiny light, every little rivet and cable. If you did, it would take 9 million years to paint anything. And I don't know about you, but I do not have 9 million years to paint everything. So nice, quick, effective schemes for me is the way to go forward. So coming in with the fang now, and as you can see, I'm taking my time. I'm going in between all those panels, a really nice kind of like a layering job. Don't want to overspray. I'm not looking for a solid coat of blue. Like I said, I'm trying to add that depth of color, add a little bit of texture, you know, that kind of thing. And I think practicing with your airbrush and getting a little bit more control really does help when it comes to these kind of steps, and helps it all kind of, I don't know, blend together a little bit more. And obviously we are going to do the canopy as well. Like I said, we've kind of the front framework we're going to leave in the chevrons, and then after that we are going to go the rest to match in with the hull of the vehicle. After that we have a little bit of black contrast, or just black paint, and we're airbrushing that on just the engine housings all the way down the body. This just gives the idea that it's kind of smoky and kind of burnt and overheating and old. These Arvus Lighters I don't think are maintained very well, if you will. I'm sure they're maintained very well, but most of them are probably a couple 100 years old, and they have pretty much daily use. So they're not supposed to look pristine. They're more kind of worn out and tired looking. So we're going to go with that effect, add a little bit of black onto those engines. Now, with those bits done, we basically come to the end of the airbrushing stage, so I'm allowed to remove the tape and reveal the chevrons underneath. And it's a very satisfying feeling, even though we did peel away a tiny bit of the yellow, which was a bit of unfortunate, but I did go back in with the same Indian ink with a brush, 2 coats, and help blend it again. I lose a little bit of yellow here as well. It's if you don't leave the ink long enough to dry and you put the tape on, it sticks to it and it pulls it off. It's really annoying. It's happened to me before because I'm impatient. Okay, so with all of the chevrons revealed, before we start weathering down this piece, we are adding transfers. I don't actually know the number of transfers that I stuck on, but you can see them all cut out now. I love transfers. I think they make or break a nice vehicle, especially. So I try and put on as many as possible that make sense. Little warning symbols, numbers, like just anything and everything that I think will work. I'm going to add a transfer to the body of this thing. The reason I add it now is now I'm going to start weathering it down. And obviously you don't want the transfers on top of weathering. The transfers are basically painted on, if you will. Therefore, they would be chipped and damaged and dirty and grimy, just like the hull of this thing. Adding a little bit of contrast medium to all the transfers after I've stuck them on first, because that will help them blend seamlessly with the hull. They will not even look like transfers. You will not see any seam around the stickers or transfers at all. It will literally look like I spent a million years painting these symbols on. Now, for the weathering, it's going to be, first of all, a dry brush of silver. So we're going to go for a nice dark lead belcher. I've got a large flat dry brush, and then I'm going to just dry brush the entire hull. Every single bit of this is going to get lightly dry brushed with silver, catching all the edges, all the rivets, all the raised detail. It's just going to add scratching and all that kind of stuff to the entire thing. It's going to pick out all those details, make them pop, make it look like you spent a lot more time on this thing than you did. You can already see all those little lines popping up on the wing there. Every little rivet will pop out. It's just such a simple thing. But I swear to God, it adds so much detail to a tank, adding that little bit of silver. I do it for literally all of my Astra Militarum and Space Marine tanks. Exactly the same thing, and it works a treat for me. Now, there is, of course, like I said, a million extra bits of detail on these pieces that you can so choose to do if you will, but I will show you the ones that I'm going to focus on and the ones I'm going to avoid. But first things first, with the beautiful canopy in place, well, with the frame of the canopy, it's time to put the canopy in place. So we're going to very carefully cut out all of these pieces, clean off the little bits of flash, and then glue them into place. The most important thing to remember when gluing these things in place is the glue that you use. Do not use plastic glue and do not use super glue. These things will fog up the glass and ruin it. PVA glue is my glue of choice for putting these into place. So I push the panels into place and then I just paint a tiny bit of PVA glue around the seams. PVA glue has no like crazy fumes. It dries completely clear, so it will be perfectly fine. Now, I had a little bit of varnish to this model later on, and I ended up fogging up the windows anyway like an idiot. But there is a way of putting, I think it's hard coat over the top of it to get rid of that fogginess. So I'll have to go and do that. So even though I do give a big speech here about a nice clean canopy, I accidentally make a mess of it later, but shh, don't worry about it. Okay, so some of those details like we talked about, we're going to go for Blood Angels red contrast and put it over these little, they look like little rocket pods to me. Are they flares? Are they rockets? I haven't looked at the new data sheet for this thing. It never used to have rockets, so I'm not 100% sure whether there's a new addition or whether they're just meant to be lights or sensors or I don't really know. Going back to lead belcher for the pipework and any other little bits of detail you can see around. Obviously with the contrast, I did yellow on those light fixtures on the tips of the wing. And I did a little bit of blue on some of the other lights. And with the silver, I painted back over the grating that goes in front of the lights as well. And just silly little details like that, nothing crazy. After that, it's now time to add weathering powder. So I go for 2 different colors of weathering powder. The dark earth is the ready one, which is the same color I use for all of my Krieg tanks and all that kind of stuff. People, of course, question me every time I do this and I put the weathering powder onto flyers. Why would there be? I imagine these things are coming in for low orbit drops. They're delivering munitions and soldiers to the front lines of battlefields. There's going to be dust and debris in the air as they're coming up and down constantly. So they're not going to be pristine. They're going to be dirty. And even if you take away all the reasons why, I think it makes it look a lot better. I like the weathered look on a tank. I like adding that powder on. I like framing different panels. And I just like it looking a little bit more battered and a little bit more war-torn. It is a military piece of equipment. Even though I just said a while ago, it's not a military piece of equipment. But you know what I mean. After I've applied all the red bits where I want them, I went in with some black pigment and I just fed that back over the engine housings, into the engine housings as well. And then once I had all the powder in place everywhere I wanted it to go, in all the nooks and crannies, I just threw a little bit of spray varnish over the top of it. So you can see the way the canopy is completely clear now. And then in a moment, it'll switch to a scene of it after the varnish has been applied. And you'll see that you can't see through the canopy anymore. So yeah, don't worry about that. I know there's a coat of something you can put over the top of it to fix it, and I will do that at some stage. But this is the finished Arvus Lighter for me. I haven't done the base yet. I will do that during the week. I just need to make a big trench scene and make something special for it. But here is the finished Arvus Lighter. I'm super pleased with the result. I think it fits in with the Krieg really well. I love how the chevrons turned out, the transfers and the weathering. I think it suits it down to the ground. I'm super happy to have this extra piece of equipment in my collection. And it was a lot of fun to paint. I know a lot of people are excited to get this just as a painting project. And I promise you, you will not be disappointed if you're one of those people that are thinking about picking it up. So hopefully you get it, and I hope that you enjoy it. Okay guys, and there we have it. The beautiful new plastic Arvus Lighter is painted up and ready to rock and roll. Maybe in this particular force, it'll be used to deliver the engineers into the heart of battle, or I don't know, some other squad of advanced Krieg, who knows. I had a blast painting it. I really enjoy painting my Krieg vehicles. As you saw in the video, I do lean heavily on airbrushes for painting them. The reason is when I started this Krieg army, I was not doing this channel. I know I veer away from airbrushing as much as possible because obviously it's not very useful for a lot of people out there who don't have airbrushes. But like I said, I did continue on the trend so that all the vehicles did match. So hopefully that didn't detract from too many people watching. But yeah, really like the result, like the hazard stripes that I introduced into my Krieg force, and the way I've been able to continue that on through all of my vehicles and stuff has been a real treat. So hopefully you enjoyed it. If you did, let me know in the comments below. If you like the video, make sure to give it a like and make sure you're subscribed. Those 3 things cost you absolutely nothing, but they make a huge difference on how many people get to see the video. So like I said, costs you nothing, pushes the video out to more people, which helps me grow bigger and stronger. Thank you guys so much for sticking around at the end of the video. I'll see you in the next one.